Let's just jump right in. Got a lot of content to cover. We should probably have about 40 minutes of tips, and then maybe a few minutes for questions at the end. A little bit about me. Founder of Launchpad Solutions and Sales Scripter, wrote a couple books. Let's just jump right in. So the focus of today is how can you change what you say to improve your results? You as a salesperson, as a business owner, it's critical that you have a tremendous amount of impact over what you say. There are some people that think you're born a salesperson. I actually completely disagree with that. I think that it's not necessarily the loudest person in the room that's the best salesperson, or that you have to have a certain personality. What you want, you have control over what you say, and you can either prepare and be logical and have a methodology around what you say, or you can wing it. And winging it leads to inconsistent results, and it might not lead to the best interactions and conversations. So we're going to show you a methodology to kind of improve what you say and have the most powerful communications. So before we do that, let's look at what a lot of salespeople do and what are not the best way to communicate, especially when you're talking to prospects that are not buying, right? Which is when you're really working to generate leads, whether that's an email, over the phone, you're networking, you're crossing prospects that aren't actively raising their hand. When they're raising their hand, it's a different story, and it's a lot easier, right? So, but although these principles still apply, even when you have somebody that's coming to you from an inbound perspective. But think about, if you've ever been at a networking event or someone's ever called you, here are some things that that an average salesperson might say, okay? Hi, I work for Initech, and we provide software engineering of bank software. We've been in business for 16 years, and we are the industry leader in software engineering. And those are some of the things that people often say at the very beginning of conversations, right? And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with starting conversations in that way and having a talk track that heads in that direction? Well, the reality is that we're all a little self-serving. I say we in terms of human beings, right? We all have a little part of us that really just cares about our own interests and our own needs. And when you're a salesperson and you talk to a prospect in this line of conversation around your company and all the great things you do, you're really aligning more with your own needs than the prospects, right? The prospect cares about their company and with all the great things that they need to do. And in reality, if a prospect isn't really actively searching for what you sell, they might not care about your company, how long you've been in business, and what you have going on. They might not even understand what you're talking about, right? If you could even be aware of that your company needs software engineering, but if someone says, well, we provide software engineering, what does that mean? You're talking your language. You're not talking the prospect's language. And this type of language doesn't build any interest. It doesn't build curiosity. It doesn't build intrigue. And it doesn't tell the prospect how you can help them. Saying that we provide software engineering or mechanical piping or fitting, it doesn't tell the prospect why they should need and use you. And if anything, this line of communication can trigger guardedness. Have you ever done prospecting calls and people are very, they hang up on you, or they're very closed off to you, or they're very abrasive? And that's because you've done something to trigger the sales guardedness. And this is where people sense that you might be a salesperson selling something, and they start to think, uh-oh, salesperson trying to sell something, must protect myself, must get out of here. And that's what this type of language sounds like. And this is worth discussing, because if we go with our natural instincts, that's the line of talk tracks that we use. And why do we do this? Well, the reality is that we're actually kind of trained to do this. And if you think about it, you may either work for a company and you might have gone through some training, or you work for yourself and you've almost kind of informally trained yourself on how to sell what you sell. And that training, especially if it's formal training, that training really looks like here's some information about our company. Here's how long we've been in business. Here's how many employees we have. Here's all the products that we sell. This is what the products do. These are the features that are provided, and these are the benefits delivered. And when we're trained on all that information, that becomes the foundation of knowledge that we have, and that becomes where is also where we have a lot of experience, because we live and breathe that type of information 5 days a week, 10 hours a day, whatever. And we also have a lot of interest in this area because this is where we get paid, and most likely you work for a company that might have some really cool stuff going on, so you have a lot of interest there. And so the problem with this is that this is very inward focused. This is all about me, all about my product, all about my company. The benefits part here is probably the one part that's decent. But when we have this foundation of knowledge, this foundation of experience and interest, then when we meet someone that might be a prospect, we basically rely on that, and that feeds into everything that we say, whether we're on the phone, whether we meet someone in an introduction, whether we're typing out what might end up being too long of an email with a bunch of information about ourselves, even maybe when we design our websites or we're out on social media. And this is what we want to avoid. And if you really don't stop to think about it, you can fall into that trap. So what we're going to focus here is we're going to focus on an alternate route. Okay, and so let's flip the script, literally and figuratively. We try to say, let's focus on the value. Let's not talk about the products that you sell. Let's talk about how your products help. Let's talk about the pain on the prospect side that you can help to fix. Qualify refers to the questions that you should be asking in your messaging. We often spend too much time thinking about what am I going to say about me, or what am I going to say to trigger interest. The more powerful thing to do when you're prospecting is to ask questions. And in reality, it's a lot easier to remember questions to ask than to remember some long explanations of product descriptions. Interest. What are we going to say? At some point, we do need to say something that triggers interest on the prospect side. So what are we going to do there? We need to establish credibility so that the prospect trusts us and agrees to move forward at some point. And then objections. Objections are really your prospect's messaging, right? The objections are what they say to get rid of you or try to keep you under control, but part of your messaging needs to be how you respond to those objections. I know that there are so many salespeople out there that don't ever really stop to think about what are the objections I'm consistently facing and how can I get best around those. So you need to have, in terms of figuring out what you're going to say, you might want to take a step to think about how am I going to respond to those common objections. And so this is sort of outside your comfort zone. This isn't what your natural instincts or what your typical corporate training positions you to do. So it's a little uncomfortable, but you start by kind of identifying how you help and the problems you resolve, and this approach becomes a much more prospect-focused approach. And when you have that foundation of knowledge and preparation, that then feeds into everything you say and turns all of your interactions into more positive ones, whether that's meeting someone at a networking event, making a cold call, email, or whatnot. So what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of go through each of those categories one at a time and show you what you can do really on your own when you walk away from this meeting to improve what you say. So we start with value, and as I mentioned, value is what your products help your clients to do, not really kind of a description of what they do. And we break value down into 3 levels. At the lowest level, you have technical value. And this doesn't necessarily mean technology or whatever. It just means at the most foundational level, what is the improvement that you make? Your service or your product might improve. It should likely. Sometimes if you sell more commoditized service, you might have to think hard about what you actually help with. But most likely you help with some sort of process on the prospect side, or you might help to improve some sort of systems, or you might help to improve the people. And so some examples of that are automation of manual processes, improving the performance of people or systems, decreasing the amount of time it takes to do something, improving reliability. And when you help your clients to achieve these benefits, that can help to create business value. So that will work its way up and create improvements in the area of revenue or costs or services. And if you're selling something that's more business to consumer, it might work their way up to improve income or whatnot. So improvements at the business level could be looked at as improved revenue, decreased of cost of goods sold, labor costs. And when you deliver both business value and technical value, that will create some sort of personal value on the prospect side. So think if you sell to a VP of HR and you help them to achieve both technical and business value, what does that mean to that VP of HR? Well, if you really help them to realize the improvements that you say that you're going to make, that could lead to them getting a bigger bonus at the end of the year, better recognition, better a promotion, decreased workload. Maybe they can actually get home at night to have dinner with their family. So those are 3 levels of value, and it's important to know the value you offer, because that should show up everywhere in your pitch, in your messaging. Here's an example of how to kind of figure out, and this is an exercise you could go through. You could build this in a spreadsheet. I'm just using a simple table here, but here are some steps you could go through to kind of figure out, well, what is it the value that I offer? If you think, well, that's great, I do, maybe I should know the value that I offer. So here's a fictional example. I've never worked for a company that sold this, but here's a product called auto inventory replenishment. And so step 2 is let's figure out what kind of that does from a functional standpoint. And what that does is that automatically submits orders to vendors based on inventory levels. So we're not really talking about value there. We're saying that's saying what it does. It electronically sends orders to vendors instead of having to manually do that. Well, what does that mean to us from a process standpoint, from a technical standpoint? Well, that helps us because we can automatically do that. That decreases the time spent walking around taking orders. And what does that mean to us from a business standpoint? Well, we don't have to have as many people walking around the warehouse with pens and pad and PDAs. And what does that mean to me at a personal level? I'm the supply chain manager, VP or something. That means that, I can get home at night and have dinner with my family instead of reviewing orders at night before the next business day. So what we just did there, we outlined the value of that one product. And it might be the case that you have multiple products, so you can sort of kind of rinse and repeat for your products, and then you have a bunch of really great value points here. And then you actually kind of have too much here, if you sell multiple products. So you might want to take a last step there to kind of summarize all of those different columns to put them into different categories. And what we've done is we've identified the value, and what you can do with that is you can create value statements. So you can have a technical value statement that says, well, what we do is we help to improve the ability, we help manufacturing companies to improve the ability to manage their inventory, right? That's a technical value statement. You can have a business value statement that says, well, we help manufacturing companies to decrease their inventory costs and labor costs. And you could get crafty here to kind of combine the two to have a technical and business value statement to say, we help manufacturing companies to improve their ability to manage inventory levels, and that typically leads to decreases in the area of inventory and labor costs. So those are really powerful statements that should be part of your pitch. And I want to show you a workflow here. I'm going to keep coming back to a slide like this, but what we did is we started with the product, and we used that to kind of identify the value that we offer. Now we're going to move over to the next sort of pillar of the methodology, which is pain. And pain basically refers to what's going on your prospect side that isn't working well or could be working better. And to kind of simplify things here, we actually use the same 3 levels of pain, and it's just sort of the inverse of value, which is we have technical pain, processes, and systems. Instead of things moving quicker, they're moving slowly, broken, they're not reliable, and those cause business pain. When something's breaking and not reliable, that causes us losses in revenue, extra costs. And if you're the CIO and you're having these disruptions and these pains, that could mean that you get fired. It might mean you don't get promoted. You actually have to work over the weekend managing the team. So that's pain in a nutshell. We could go in a lot more detail on that topic. What I would say to you is that out of all these, pain might be the most important really area to focus on, that you often we skip to talking about our products. We should stop and focus on pain. And if you can do that one thing alone, you'll see immediate results.
Hey, Michael.
Yep.
Real quick, there's several people asking what I thought was a pretty good question. They're asking, is there a way for them to take this matrix that you're showing them and create their own?
Sure, yeah. I mean, well, if I just flip back to it real quick, it's just a simple table, right? It's 5 columns and then like 4 rows, right? So you'll get a copy of these slides, and you'll get a recording of this presentation, and you can build this out on your own. Although I am I am with Sales Scripter. Sales Scripter will actually walk you through this process to where you're asked these questions, and it'll take you through it step by step. So that might be easier for you as well. But everything you can do, everything we're talking about here today, you can do on your own without buying anything from anybody, and you could just use a spreadsheet to build it the same way. So, Craig, let me know if any other questions come up. But we were just talking about pain, and pain is really one of the best ways to get the prospect's attention. You should focus on it in your calls, in your emails, and what you want to do now. What isn't a great step forward is just talking about whatever pain the prospect has, right? If you just say, well, what keeps you up at night? In fact, that was a question I was taught early in my career. Ask a prospect what keeps them up at night. That's probably better than you talking about your products, but it's not a great question, because what if the prospect starts to ramble on about problems that you can't fix? Not only are you wasting valuable time talking about areas that you really don't have an influence on, but you actually could end up in an area that you don't have any knowledge on either, and then you start to you get in a less powerful situation. So what you want to do is you want to guide the conversation to the problem, to identifying if there are problems, but specifically the problems that you can fix. So the first step there is to identify and create a list of the problems that you fix. And I want to show you a trick here. We're back to that workflow. If we identify the value that we offer, you could use that list to identify a list of problems that you fix, because for each way that you help someone, that should fix a problem that's going on. If we help a business to decrease the time spent ordering, then we help to fix the problem of it's just too time consuming to place orders every night. If we help to increase ordering accuracy, we help to resolve the problem that there are sometimes errors in the orders. So use your list of value points to build a corresponding list of pain points that you fix, and then you should have that list of pain points with you at all times, pretty much. I mean, figuratively, it should be at the top of your mind. Moving on to the next section here, which is qualifying. Qualify really refers to assessing the prospect in terms of how likely they are to move forward with the purchase. Actually, before they move forward, how well do they even fit with what you have to offer? And you really qualify primarily in 2 ways. You might do some research before you talk to a prospect, maybe seeing how big their company is or how many years they've been in business. But one of the real primary ways that you qualify a prospect is by asking questions. And that's why this is really key to really being one of the most important components of what you say. What you say should be, when you figure out what to say, you should have in there the key questions that you should ask. And really the key part here is the step 1 of this 2-step qualifying process, which is the pre-qualifying questions. These are questions that determine, hey, does it even make sense for us to get together? Yes, I need to fill up my calendar with meetings, but does it make sense for me to drive across the city and then spend an hour with you, right? I mean, you need to ask questions in order to determine that. And so that's what your pre-qualifying questions help you to do. And then, of course, all throughout the sales process, you need to be doing full qualifying as well, which kind of just determines is the deal for real. So you want to develop a key list of qualifying questions, and we're going to go back to this workflow here because you can continue here to say the pre-qualifying questions should really be around, or most of them should be around identifying if the prospect has pain in the area that you can fix. Because if everything is great where you can fix, then that's not a prospect that you should spend your valuable time on. Even if you could get a meeting, then they might not end up ever being able to spend money with you because they don't have any pain. So one way to get to a great list of questions is to look at the pain points that you just identified. For each pain point, you should have a key question, and then that should be, it could be on a piece of paper that you take in with you on a first meeting, or when you're making a cold call. But if we help to fix the problem of spending too much time processing orders, then we should ask a question to our prospect of, how concerned are you about the time it takes for your organization to produce orders every night or whatever? If we help to fix the problem of errors occurring in the orders, well, then we need to identify if that's going on. So we want to ask a question of, hey, how often do you see errors in your orders, right? So your pain points can lead you to the key qualifying questions that you should ask. Moving on. Now we move on to the category of interest. And interest actually this is where we do start to talk about ourselves, right? I kind of started out this saying, don't talk about your products and don't just focus on you, focus on the prospect. But at some time, we do have to talk about how we can, about ourselves, how we can help, and we need to generate at least enough interest so that we can close for the next step in our sales process. And so instead of just talking about your features and what they do and the functionality of your products, there are some ways to communicate in a more powerful way. You can connect the pain that your prospect is experiencing with the value that you offer. You can communicate the ROI that your products deliver. You can explain how you differ from the competition. You can paint a picture of a future state, kind of help you try to use words and descriptions that allow your prospect, like think if you're, imagine watching like a weight loss commercial exercise product tool on TV. They talk about, they try to paint a picture of what you will look like if you lose weight and you get more trim. What does your quality of life look like there? So they're painting a picture of a future state. You could discuss the impacts of doing nothing. If you sell insurance, you would probably want to discuss what happens if you're selling flood insurance, you'd want to discuss what happens if there's a big storm. You never know when a storm's going to happen, and what does that look like from a cost and life standpoint if one does happen. And you can always share company facts. That's what some people lead with, like we've been in business, we've won these awards. Those are good, but use those at the end. And if we go back to the messaging workflow here, I want to show you. So you could use the value that you came up with to develop some of your building interest points, because if you help to decrease time spent ordering, use that value point there to think about, well, what is the return on investment that we usually offer there? Well, when we usually do that, it typically helps our clients to decrease inventory costs by between 20 to 30% in the first 12 months of somebody using our service. So that's it's a little different than just talking about the value. It's more of an ROI statement, and that's really powerful to add to your pitch. The payback period is a key ROI or metric or detail, or you could really look at more as just a payback statement. But most clients that purchase our services or our product, it pays for itself within the first 18 months. That's a powerful thing to say versus just going on and on talking about the features and functionality of what your products do. Credibility. So we're moving on, and now credibility is basically, how credible are you? And you really should establish credibility. You can work to do it on your first call. First actual phone conversation. You might need to do it throughout the sales process, providing references or whatnot. But basically, establishing credibility means that you're trustable. You're someone that should be led on the inside. One area where it's actually less of a trustable thing, it's more of that you're not an outsider, is when you're doing phone prospecting. You might want to establish credibility, because gatekeepers and prospects, if they receive your call, they might be thinking, uh-oh, salesperson that's an outsider trying to get in to sell to my company. And what you want them to do is to think you're more of an insider. You're more of a friend than a foe, to decrease their guardedness. So something you can do there is to name drop. Just simply saying, yeah, you connect with someone. Oh, hey, I was talking with Mary in accounting the other day. She mentioned your name, and that's why I'm reaching out to you. Doing something as simple as that can decrease someone's guardedness. So it's very important to do early in sales cycles, as well as later, so that someone feels comfortable making the commitment with you. But name dropping is key. You can either just casually name drop someone's name, or you can name drop. Casually name drop someone's name that you've spoken to in the organization. By the way, if you haven't spoken to someone in the organization, here's a trick. You could actually name drop people that you're planning on wanting to talk to, right? So if Mary is the VP of HR and you're calling the VP of Finance, you could say, when you get the VP of Finance on the phone, you could say, yeah, we're planning on meeting with, trying to reach out, let me rephrase this. We're planning on meeting with, or just to be completely safe here, you could say, we're planning on talking to Mary Thomas in HR, and before we did do that, we want to reach out to you because we know that finance has a very big, important role in what we will be talking with Mary about. And so you just name drop someone that you haven't even spoken to, and you're not really lying there. There's no lack of integrity in that. If you use the words I used, we are planning on talking to Mary. I mean, we have all intentions to do that. Anyways, storytelling, talking about it.
Hey, Michael.
Yep.
Michael. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to point out that's an awesome, cool way to use lead ferret, right? If you give me a referral and tell me I need to call Bob Johnson at ABC Company, if I look up ABC Company or Bob Johnson on lead ferret real quick before I make that call, I'll know all the executives there, and I can name drop all of those guys.
Yep, excellent point. Good stuff. So excellent stuff to do there when you're prospecting. That's sort of name dropping internal contacts. You could name drop external clients as well, telling a story. We worked with such and such company. You really want to be name dropping as much as possible. And so you can, going back to the workflow here, we can go back to value and look at the value that we offer, and then try to think of a particular client that we worked with. So here's using the value points there to come up with an example. To create sort of a story here. We provided inventory management software to Johnson Materials. This helped them to reduce time spent ordering by 50%, which led to a reduction of warehouse managers and a decrease of labor costs by 17%. So that's a pretty powerful statement that you can use there. Those are really good to open up. We use those sometimes in emails. So instead of sending an email that says, and I just crack up. I get these prospecting emails that just go on and on about the company and the product that the person that is sending the email to me has, and it just doesn't build any interest at all. In fact, it's more of a turnoff. Imagine sending an email that has this name drop example, and that's all it is. I'm reaching out to you because we worked with Johnson Materials, did this, it led to this. Don't know if you're interested in those same types of results, or I don't know if you're concerned about that, and that's why I'm reaching out to you. I mean, that's an extremely short email. You're talking about 3 sentences, and it can really pique someone's interest. So just an example there on credibility. And we're at the last section here, and this is called objections, and we're in the home stretch for the webinar here. But objections, like I said, are the prospect's messaging, but how you respond to those are part of your messaging. So you're going to face objections like, I'm busy right now, who are you with, what is this in regards to, I'm not interested, just send me some information. So those are the same, really, regardless what you sell. So you have a couple options. You can either comply, which is to say, oh, okay, I'm sorry, have a nice day. You can overcome, which is if someone says, I'm not interested, this would be like you trying to say, oh, but I did get a chance to tell you we're the industry leader and we've won awards, right? You're trying to overcome. You're trying to make someone that's not interested interested. And we actually, when you're prospecting and you're at early stage, early sales cycle stages, we advise against trying to overcome, because your goal is really just to establish the conversation, keep the conversation going, and then later when you're at the table, when you're in a meeting, you can try to face objections head on, identify if they're legitimate. But early on, what we recommend is redirecting and sort of like deflecting the objection into a new yet related area. So here's an example. Someone says, I'm not interested. Oh, I understand. Do you mind if I ask what you're doing today in this area? And then the prospect might say, well, and just to get a little bit more specific than that example there, let's say someone says, I'm not interested. Oh, I understand. If I could ask you real quick, are you guys using any kind of inventory management system today? And then they might say, oh, yeah, we're using such and such. Oh, you are? Okay, well, what year did you guys implement that? Oh, we implemented in such and such. Okay, are you using is it in-house developed? And I can continue to ask questions. And what happens there is I've totally flipped the script 180 degrees, because we went from them shutting me down and getting rid of me to me extracting valuable information. Every time I ask a question that they answer, I'm getting information I can use. To be honest with you, even if they continue to have that I'm not interested mindset and the call ends, but they answer like 3 of my questions, I can then call someone else at the company, tell them that let's say I talked to Tom, and I can call up someone else and say, oh yeah, I talked to Tom. He told me that you guys are, it seems like I learned that you guys are using this system. It was implemented and you're supporting it with in-house resources. And then you can continue on to go forward with that call. And what that does is that it gives you the name drop. It makes you look credible. You've established that you know what's going on, and you can leverage that information. Anyways, sorry, I kind of digressed there, got into too much detail. But if you say, well, that's great, I think redirecting can help, but where should I redirect to? It's really simple here. If you believe in everything that we've talked about up until this point, you can redirect to any of the areas that we just talked about. One of the best places for you to redirect, and that's what I did in the example, is redirect to one of the the pre-qualifying questions that you came up with. Redirect to your value statement. Redirect to some of your pain points. So I showed you an example with the qualifying questions. I think I have on this next. Let me jump ahead. So here are some examples. So the second point on the right side is an example of bringing over the pain points. So let me kind of talk through an example there. If someone says we're not interested, and let's say so I could respond by saying, oh, I understand. A lot of VPs of operation that I talk to, they express concerns that sometimes there's errors in the orders, that it's time-consuming to process the orders on a nightly basis, and sometimes the stock items are out. Have you seen any of those 3 things? And so what I did there is I responded to the objection with the pain points. And it's kind of similar to your qualifying question, but you're actually just responding with the pain points. You could respond with your building interest point. Someone says, I don't know. It doesn't sound that like we probably need what you provide. Respond with one of your ROI statements. Oh, I understand. We have worked with some companies and decreased their inventory cost by between 20 to 30%. Is that something that you all don't need or wouldn't be interested in? So I just replied to the objection with an ROI building interest statement. You could reply with the name drop statement. Someone says, I don't think that we're a good fit for what you guys do. Oh, I understand. We work with Johnson Materials, and we did this, and it led to that. Do you think that you guys are in a different situation than Johnson Materials? So you just reply there with your name drop, and then once you kind of figure out how you can respond to these objections, you could build a tool that's an objections map that's just 2 columns. One column is the objection, and the other column is how to respond. And so simply stick that on your wall in your office or in your cube, and you'll immediately improve your results. So we'll talk about SalesScripter here in a second, but briefly. But SalesScripter actually automatically builds your objections map for you because, as I told you, since you can respond to objections with all the things in that workflow there. Sales Scripter will take you through that workflow, and when you basically develop all those things, voila, you have basically an objection rebuttal tool automatically. And so that's pretty much it. That's the methodology. Looks like we got about 10 minutes left. So if you, like I said, I think you can take just about all of that and use Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and build out some great stuff for yourself and improve your results immediately. But if you think it's pretty good stuff and you want some help, or you want a tool that will help you to work through that methodology, that's exactly what Sales Scripter does. Sales Scripter is aligned with that methodology, and what it basically does is it asks you the key questions. So if you look here under point 1, what do you sell? How does it help? What problems does it fix? What questions should you ask to see if those problems exist? Those are like the questions that Sales Scripter asks, more or less. And when you answer those, your answers are then plugged into a library of sales tools, templates, email templates, scripts, voicemail scripts, and whatnot. And because the reality is if you think about it, even if you just came up with one problem, this is the one problem that I fix, that one problem should show up everywhere in your pitch. It should show up in your voicemail script, in your emails, in your call script, when you meet someone at a networking event. It should show up everywhere. And that's basically what Sales Scripter does, is as it identifies those pain points, as you type it out in your answer and hit save, it's automatically filled in all the key places where it needs to be. So if you think this is good stuff and you want more, we have a ton of not a ton. We have some ebooks and a traditional regular book that I've authored available. The Cold Calling Equation Problem Solved is a book that I wrote. It's available on Amazon. But then I've produced some ebooks as well that are available on salescripter.com or salesgrowthhub.com. And we have the do's and don'ts of cold calling, how to get around cold call objections, how to build a value proposition that generates leads, how to build sales campaigns that sell. And all those books have more information than what I ran through really quickly here today on. And so you can get a lot of those free ebooks. And then if the cold calling equations, 200-something page book. So if you wanted the deepest dive, that's where to get that. We also have lots of videos. I have like 50-something videos on my YouTube channel. Those are all posted, or a lot of those are posted on salescripter.com as well as salesgrowthhub.com. And then you can get a lot of these slides and these videos on SlideShare as well. If you want if you want less of a DIY, do-it-yourself approach, we offer a 10-week web-based sales training program that kind of goes through all of this in a lot more detail. We basically spend an hour a week in each of these topics, and then we also offer one-on-one sales coaching and then management consulting or one-on-one consulting. Check out Sales Scripter. There is a free version that you can get in, test it out for free. You can get a lot out of it for free. And then if you want the full version, it's $19 a month. And then what we also offer is we'll actually go through Sales Scripter with you. I'm the one that actually delivers those, and it's basically like a 2-hour coaching session where we'll fill out and answer Sales Scripter with you together. That's valuable for a couple reasons. One is I know how I design the tool, so I know where each question goes, so I can help you from that standpoint. But also, I'm a pretty good wordsmith. I've written a lot of scripts through our call center call campaigns, so I'm pretty good at wordsmithing. So I can help you to wordsmith stuff, see things from a different angle than you see them, and help you to build out some campaigns and fill out your scripter library. So that is it for Sales Scripter. I'm going to pass it over to you, Craig, for either any questions or